Allahu, 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 Allah, Allahu, Allah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. There are quite a few posters and sometimes even small articles going around describing qada salah, making up missed prayers, in accordance with the Hanafi madhab. Now, there are quite a few problems with regards to what's been said in some of these articles, or what's been written in some of these articles, and what's printed on some of these posters. The first thing to clarify is they are often misleading in that they give the impression that there is a difference between how one would pray ada salah, yani salah on time, and qada salah, which is when you make up a prayer that's been missed. Obviously, everybody should be aware it's not permitted to miss prayers unless there's a dire necessity. Then one may not be sinful, but normally to miss a prayer, this is extremely sinful. But yet it does need to be made up, as well as tawbah. But to give the impression that there is a difference in the way that you actually pray the prayer that needs to be made up, this is completely wrong. And this contradicts what we find in the authoritative books of the Hanafi madhab. There's no difference between the way you actually pray. There is a difference in terms of when you make qada, you don't pray, for example, any nafal that you would normally pray, or any sunnah ghayru mu'akkada that you would normally pray. You only pray the fard prayers and the wajib witr prayer. Okay, but in terms of praying those prayers, you know, what you actually recite in them, the postures, etc., it's exactly the same. So that's the first significant error that we find in these kind of articles and on these posters, that they give the impression that there's actually a different way. And the Hanafis have taught us that there's one way of praying ada prayer on time, and a different way of praying qada prayer outside of its time, prayer that needs to be made up. So that's the first problem, and it's a major issue. Now, when we go into some of the details, then, you know, these articles and posters do vary. Okay, some of them have the person miss out many of the sunnah or recommended components of the prayer. And although it is true that doing so will not render the prayer invalid, and here I'd encourage everybody to study the fiqh of salah so you will understand exactly what each of these concepts actually means. Okay, it doesn't render the prayer invalid, but it's not a good thing to do. You need to miss sunnah components of the prayer, sunnah aspects of the prayer, especially when they are emphasized sunnahs regularly. This is a problem. So the issue with that is, first and foremost, it's a concern, it's a problem within the Hanafi madhab. You're not supposed to just leave sunnahs all of the time. And secondly, what will happen then is, although in the Hanafi madhab, if you're leaving sunnahs, your prayer is not invalidated, your prayer may still be valid, but when you go across the madhab and give consideration to other madhabs, your prayer is likely to be invalid, especially if you look at some of the sunnahs they're asking us to leave out in these posters and articles. And we have a principle in the Hanafi madhab itself that says, as much as possible, it is recommended for us to try to make our prayers valid across the board, across the madhab, across the madhabs, in order to be more cautious and avoid any difference of opinion. Now, in recent times, I've seen that some of these articles and posters are going even further and asking people to leave even some aspects of the wajib. Like one I saw recently was saying that only recite half of the Fatiha. That makes it even more problematic now. So yes, although leaving a wajib component of the prayer is not going to necessarily invalidate it in the Hanafi madhab, okay, but it's sinful to do so. To leave a wajib on purpose is sinful to do so. And also it concerns me that, you know, why is this person saying just recite half of the Fatiha? Because the fard in the Hanafi madhab is to recite one verse of the Holy Quran. And the wajib is to recite the entirety of Surah Al-Fatiha, as well as another surah afterwards, or some verses of Quran afterwards. So where did half of Surah Fatiha come from? So this is taken it even further now, where people are being encouraged even to miss wajib elements, wajib components of the prayer. So this approach is completely incorrect. Even, the very concept of teaching people that there's a difference between ada and qada is a problem. Telling people or encouraging people to miss out sunnahs, especially sunnah mu'akkada components, is a concern. Missing out wajib components of the prayer is even more of a concern. And yes, although the person may end up ultimately with a valid prayer, he's missed out a lot. And all of this is being done, as far as I can understand, with the encouragement, okay, then you'll get your prayer done quicker. You'll get it done more quickly, so you'll ultimately make up all of your prayers more quickly. In my experience, practically speaking, this doesn't really tend to help. The amount of time a person saves by taking these shortcuts, let's call them, is not very much. And that time, as one of my teachers, Allah Most High preserve him, said, that the amount of time people will save by doing these kind of things, they'll waste that amount of time over just a cup of tea, for example. It's really an absurdity. Many people, when it comes to qada prayers, they have like a daily limit anyway. Okay, I'm going to do, I don't know, a day's worth every day or 2 days worth every day. And, that they've got their plan. And they're going to carry that out whether you're asking them to miss out the wajib and sunnah or not. And they're not going to go beyond that. Now, obviously, I would advise people to constantly try to increase the amount of qada they're doing every day in order to get things done more quickly and to have a good recording system so a person, can record correctly whatever they've prayed in terms of qada salah. But this not only is going to be problematic, because it does become sinful when you're missing sunnah mu'akkada all of the time, and it's sinful when you're missing wajib elements of the prayer. So not only is this person going to be acquiring sin, but the kind of goal behind this encouragement is not going to be fulfilled with most people anyway. There may be some people that this benefits in some way, but even then I would not advise them to do it, because, why are you missing out wajib elements of the prayer or sunnah elements of the prayer in order to get it done more quickly? No, do it right and try to get it done as quickly as possible, inshaAllah ta'ala. If doing it right means that it's going to take a little bit longer to get it done, it's the correct thing to do. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. Barakallahu feekum.